Okay, so I'm Alan Dix. I work at RIS, and my background is in what's called human-computer interaction. But today I want to talk about numbers. So hands up, anyone who loves numbers. Well, actually quite a few. I won't ask you to name yourselves, because otherwise you'll never get invited to any more parties, right? So I won't ask you to put your hands up, but anybody here who's sick of numbers? Just nod your head vaguely. A hand went up even without asking. You're not alone. So there was a survey a few years ago, and 1/3 of people had anxiety about numbers. And 1 in 5 said that they were sick of numbers. And not sick, I think, in the sense that you may have meant there, but as in gagging sick. They actually felt sick when they thought about numbers. The anxiety was that great. Now a confession. So nobody will invite me to a party because I do love numbers. And I've always loved numbers from a small child. I can remember my mum teaching me how to do long division style square roots, to do square roots using a tableau like that. She had learnt in school, and she obviously loved her numbers because she left school at 15 and went to secretarial school and stuff. So it wasn't that she did high maths, but she remembered this from school and she taught it to me. And I also competed as part of the British team in the International Mathematical Olympiad. And you think, what? Does that exist in Romania, where I was on television in Romania, right? Can you imagine Sky Sports? You have this room full of somewhat geeky, mostly male, not all, but mostly male, school kids, bent over bits of paper doing maths puzzles. It really makes engaging television, but Romanian television had us. So now you know, and actually, you're at the back there who put your hand up at sick. You probably are really hating me now. You're definitely not going to invite me to your party, are you? Now, does it matter? Does it matter? Right? Numbers matter in this world. Right? We've got an election. Right? Issues the election, migration, the economy. Right? There are numbers that are flying around those, sometimes reported correctly, sometimes incorrectly. Just recently, did any of you have that depressing experience of watching the potential Prime Minister's debate last week on Wednesday? I did. It was very depressing. It was very depressing. What's interesting afterwards, Keir Starmer quoted a figure of 50,000 boats coming over since Rishi Sunak was in office. In The Guardian, they actually reported that as 15 rather than 50. I'm not sure whether that was a transcription error from somebody speaking to a phone, but nobody noticed. Nobody noticed a factor of 3, more than 3. Some while ago, there was a BBC article that talked about ice loss in Greenland. And it said that there's a particular glacier, the big glacier, it was a really big one in Greenland. People were worried it was melting faster than normal. And it was melting at 35,000 cubic meters of ice a year were being lost from this glacier. Right? And that was the BBC article. Does that sound like a lot? Who's worried? Now, who's worried about climate change? That's different. Who's worried given that figure? Right? Now, in fact, it's fine. So it does its job. It's a big number. It sounds a big number. And it actually is a big number. We'll come back to it. But actually, 1,000 cubic meters is 10 meters. So that's something actually a little bit bigger than 10 meters by 10 meters high. So a bit bigger than the area of this room by about 3 times higher. About the ice that would fill the building we're in. Per year, big glacier in Greenland. Go off and buy BP shares, who cares? Actually, the figure was wrong. It comes from a UN report, and it was 35 km cubed, km3. They couldn't do superscripts in the UN report. They went km3, which is cubic kilometers. Now, somebody along the line read that as K, 1,000 meter cubes. Right? It's actually km cubed. That is, imagine Cardiff, central Cardiff, right? Probably a kilometre or so in each direction, a kilometre high and 35 of those. Enough to fill greater Cardiff area, probably a kilometre or a mile deep, to fill the whole of the Wales valleys with ice if you had glaciers up there. That is a lot. The BBC figure was 1 million times out. nobody noticed. Right? Now, these things matter. Now, perhaps that one doesn't matter as much because you got the right message from it. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes precise numbers matter. So if you're flying to the moon, you might remember that one that crashed in Phobos a few years ago. And that was because they were a little tiny bit out, a fraction percentage out. Sometimes it's mostly it doesn't. It's about these approximate numbers. A lot of life is about these sort of vague orders of magnitude of things and getting those and understanding them and seeing if they matter. Because sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. Right? Numbers matter to all of us. They shouldn't just matter to the numerate. I'm highly numerate. I can just look at those numbers and they mean things. But they matter to us all. So we all need to understand those numbers. So, and that's true, I said, for us as individuals, as consumers of this, but as academics, and I was trying to look around if there's anybody from sort of journalism school here, but certainly those of you who produce numbers for academia, for the general public, we need to worry about getting them right and also communicating them effectively. So one of the things I've been doing, actually over a larger, if I look back, I can see little bits of work over a year, sort of collecting together recently, is different bits of work that can try in different ways to try and help people both to understand those numbers, but also, if you're a producer of numbers, to make sure you don't make those gaffes of a factor of a million. And it is easy. I have done it myself, knowing about these things. I still can do those sort of things. I won't, I've got, if you want to, I've got some demos, but I won't show them here, but if you go to I've got an Alan Dick's Labs page, you could go and look at that. You can look at various demos. One of them, they're called the size of whales, where, because they say, an iceberg, the size of Wales, right, has carved from things. So basically it looks at, if you mark up your web page or whatever, it will highlight things and turn them into, 3 times the size of Wales, 2.5 times the size of Isle of Wight. If you can turn it to Italian mode, it turns into Elbas and Sicilies and things like that. So I've got that. Another one which is a good fun is a calculator. And it sounds like this. It's a web calculator. It's a gazillion calculators on the web with a till roll. Now, why wouldn't you? Some of you, I won't ask you if you're old enough to remember calculators that had paper till rolls at the back, but they did used to be desktop calculators. When they went electronic and you've got a screen this size, of course you don't do that. We've now, even on a phone, let alone on a screen, you can actually have, but also still just see the last number you typed. So it's got a till roll, that's useful in itself. Because it's got a till roll, of course, you can then copy numbers out of that. So you can see what you've done and you can reuse numbers. You can save a till roll and come back to it later and edit it. And if you edit it, then it redoes the numbers like a little mini spreadsheet. So the idea is you're gradually moving from using a calculator, which a lot of people feel comfortable with, to moving into, should we say, small spreadsheet land, which, again, if you just ask people to pick up a spreadsheet, they would say, that's not for me. So basically, there's a range of things around this, but I'm just not playing, but experimenting around this area, saying what are the kinds of things that might make a difference, might make it easier to play with numbers, easier to understand numbers. So I'd really like it, if there are other people here who'd like to join that would be great to talk about things. Really, I just want to make sure that all of us understand numbers and none of us are made sick by them. Okay, thank you.